Hello everybody. In this video I'll be taking a look at my animation project I've been developing for the past few months. Over the course of this project I created 8 different animations: walk, run, idle, death, stretch, look around, wave, and dance. In this video I'll show each of those in Engine, doing a breakdown of how I animated them, reflecting on how I used animation principles, my opinion on the overall quality and consistency of the animations, and how I responded to feedback from critique sessions. The walk cycle was my first and most intensive cycle, built pose to pose using Richard Williams' reference. During rigging I made a world chest space switch to lock the head independently of the chest movements, and even studied my own backyard footage to perfect the weight shift and balance, and no, I will not be releasing that footage. Everything was built pose to pose with tons of back and forth refining, and you can totally feel that care in the movement. Now let's talk flair. There's some real juicy arcs in the hands, and the leg timing straight out of Richard Williams' playbook. The head bobs along for some sweet secondary action, and even the hands help to sell the walk. You can feel the weight shifting as the character steps. It's got purpose, bounce, and ton of personality. Everything was built pose to pose with tons of back and forth refining, and you can totally feel that care in the movement. The follow through on the arms adds a nice drag and snap. I am happy with how the arms and legs flow. Sticking to the principles and following the forearms through gave an appealing result, but I think the foot row could have been a bit smoother. I also think that there's potential for adding more character into the walk. It's true that I gave it a very sturdy and purposeful walk, however I did not really experiment and try different approaches to the cycle before I landed on this one, so there's definitely room for improvement there. For this walk animation I was told to add more hip movement and natural arm swing. After reviewing some references and going back with my colleagues, I tweaked the torso rotation and adjusted some spline curves to make the movement flow better. The run animation was all about energy and pace. Compared to the walk, I used more dynamic poses, leaned the body forward, and shortened the contact time to increase the feeling of speed. I applied squash and stretch in the torso and overlapping motion in the arms. The run cycle was a whole different beast. Fast, energetic, and packed with motion. The timing is super snappy to match the pace of the run, and I pushed the exaggeration with those stretched out leg poses to keep it dynamic. I'll admit, the weight doesn't hit quite as well here. The character's not fully committed to the run, but even with a few rough spots, it still looks pretty appealing and full of character. It's turned out quite clean and loops nicely. I think it contrasts well with the walk animation and keeps consistency in style. Next time I would definitely look more into how to properly put weight into the steps of the character, and how to give it better timing, as I heard that I could hold the up poses longer to give the character a nicer pace. The critique I got also mentioned holding up poses, so I'll probably do this next time. This idle animation has calm, natural feel. The character breathes slowly with gentle movement in the shoulders, chest, and head. The pose adds interest without feeling stiff, and the slow timing keeps the focus on the breathing. One hand has slight sway while the other rests on the hip, adding subtle detail without being distracting. The arcs and follow through help the motion feel smooth and alive. That was also my first time properly animating fingers using the controls I set up, which worked really well. The feedback I received told me that the motion was too much at first, so I reduced the sway and made the breathing more subtle. That helped it feel more grounded. If I were to improve this further, I'd lower the chest movement slightly to reduce the head bob. I'd also add a world hip switch for the IK hands, which would have made the workflow way easier. Overall, I think it fits nicely with the other animations, and gives this relaxed mood that I wanted. For the death animation, I focused on strong anticipation and follow through. It starts with the characters slouching down, lacing their fingers, holding that pose just long enough for the player to take it in. Then, with a quick motion, they clutch their chest and fall. I added smooth arcs in the arms and legs to guide the fall and keep it feeling natural. Anticipation really sells this animation. It adds weight, smooths out the action, and keeps everything from feeling abrupt. The staging is clear and dramatic, starting with a big chest grab, then a jump full of panic, and finally the over-the-top fall. I combined pose to pose for the setup and jump, and switched to straight ahead for the fall and leg follow through to get that loose, reactive feel. It's super exaggerated and cartoonish, but it works perfectly fine for the tone. I think the result is dramatic and clear, and the weight distribution works well. To improve this animation, I would first need to improve my knowledge and skills overall, as I don't see much that needs improvement. One nitpick is that when I switch from IK to FK on the legs, as the character falls, I blend the switcher over a few frames, which is a bit noticeable on the knees. The death animation also initially felt too abrupt. I adjusted the timing and changed the splines, which helped improve the sense of weight. Feedback I received early on helped me delay each of the legs slightly as they bounced back up, to add more realism that made a big difference. This animation is slower and more relaxed, meant to contrast the faster, action-heavy ones. It leans fully into squash and stretch, with the character pulling in and then reaching out in a big satisfying motion. Very morning stretch energy. The strong anticipation with a step out, a weight shift, and a nice long arc that makes the movement feel smooth. I focused on easing and overlapping, especially in the arms and hands, and added secondary action like hip rotation to bring it to life. It turned out clean and fits well alongside the idol in both tone and style. I could have made this animation way better, but it was the first time I ran into my greatest enemy, Gimbal Lock. Just look at these arms! What are you doing? Looks like he's falling apart. And no, you couldn't just tween back to the original pose, that would be way too easy. If I ever meet this Gimbal guy, I am locking his joints myself. Fortunately, I found a workaround for it this time, so it's all okay. Let's talk about both the look around and the wave animations, as they both ended up being blends later on. In Maya, I animated only the head for the look around, then set it up in Unreal so the head joints blend onto the rest of the skeleton. The look around itself uses clear staging, a quick first glance, a slower second look, then a smooth return, all with pronounced and nicely dipping arcs. After getting feedback that the second glance felt too abrupt, I added a couple more frames and instantly felt more readable. Directly following that, the wave loop builds on similar principles, arcs, drag, and overlapping motion in the arm, plus a touch of secondary action as the offhand pops up. Slow in and slow out keeps the wave from feeling too robotic, and an exaggerated chest movement gives it that extra flair. Both loop nicely, blend nicely, reinforce the character personality, and can layer over the idle cycle in Engine. This dance animation is full of energy and groove, with exaggerated motion and rhythm that really suits the character's cartoonish vibe. I used squash and stretch, clear poses, and snappy timing to keep it playful and fun. The head bobs, the hips groove, and everything flows with a solid rhythm, even though I think it could use a bit more polish. I ran into a rig issue where the clavicle controls were locked, so I had to tweak Maya's settings to free up the shoulder movement and make the dance work. In the end, it came up with a lot of personality and easily stands out, right up there with the death animation in terms of style and appeal. I had fun creating it, and I think it gave the character a bit of personality. If I could improve one thing, I'd speed up the hand movements and give them more dynamic timing to give the character more rhythm. Gimbal Lock struck again and made animating the hands a nightmare. I gave up and was forced to make the hands a bit boring and bland. Overall, this project sharpened my animation craft, from mastering principles and problem-solving Gimbal Lock to refining my workflow and critique responsiveness. The 8 animations form a cohesive yet varied set, establishing clear staging, timing, and exaggeration. Critique sessions were invaluable, pushing me to fine-tune details and embrace collective feedback. Moving forward, I'll target even bolder character choices, but I'm proud of how much my skill and confidence have grown over these past months. So, that was all. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed seeing the breakdown of my work.